Hi, y'all. Today I want to talk about kind of a serious topic about crisis communications and crisis social media in particular. I want to talk about some things to do and what not to do, and how to prepare and plan ahead for a crisis, and what to do in the midst of the crisis. How do you prepare to use social media in a crisis? You've got to plan ahead. But first, let's talk about what a crisis really is. Raven Tools defines a crisis as an online situation that has or risks having a negative and long-term impact on your business or organization's reputation and or bottom line. So anything that's risking your bottom line, you can consider a crisis. The first thing that I would advise that you do is pause any and all scheduled posts. Depending on what the crisis is, if it's something like what we've gone through in the past, our country has gone through in the past few months, definitely in the early days of the Black Lives Matter protests and the tragic shootings and the early days of the COVID pandemic, probably was a good idea to just stop posting and not appear insensitive. You really don't want to look like you're just going about your business and ignoring a crisis that is affecting everyone. So it's a good idea to determine and put into writing how you will respond to things that might come up. Imagine crisis situations that may be unique to your industry or your business and think through how you would respond to them. What if you had an unhappy customer who's talking about you online? Now, this may or may not rise to crisis level, but it certainly could. An example is a local restaurant at the city that my husband and I used to live in. And in the past few weeks, they had some allegations of racism and just really, really negative publicity come out about some racist practices and a toxic racist culture within their group of 4 restaurants. And the way they responded to it was interesting, because one of the very first things they did was delete all of their social profiles, which honestly only served to make unhappy employees and customers and unhappy potential customers matter. So don't do that. You look like you have something to hide. You can delete a post if you want to. If the problem is a post, you can delete it if you want to, but know that people are going to screenshot it, and just be prepared for that if you're going to delete posts. What if you had an employee or a representative who posted an offensive content on their own social account? Or it could be an inappropriate post on your own social account. Someone you have trusted with your password could go rogue and post something inappropriate. So prepare for that as well. What if a product you sell or produce or promote cause harm or injury? What if you have an employee who's rude or inappropriate with a customer or client? And this could include some schools and even organizations that have dealt with sexual abuse and child abuse within their ranks. What if there's a moral scandal involving company leadership? This can be pretty serious, and it's pretty much what happened with the restaurant that I mentioned in our former city, and the owner, one of the owners had to actually sell out and step down. You have to include, in your plan, you've got to include these 3 things, at least these 3 things, and many more. Who is going to communicate to the media on behalf of your business? Who should the media contact? Make sure you know and make sure you have that person's contact information handy and that everyone knows who it should be. and that you've decided in advance. This should be someone who has media training, who has a relationship, if possible, with the media, and who's used to talking to members of the press. Know who the members of your crisis communications team, if you're big enough to have a team, know who the members of your team are going to be. Define that in advance so that you're not scrambling at the last minute. And have policies already outlined for the rest of the company or organization on how to communicate in a crisis and where to refer inquiries. You don't want every employee commenting, so tell them who they should refer to, or give them the contact information of your point person, and make sure they know that that's who they are to refer any questions to. In an interview with Brand24 blog, crisis expert Monika Czaplicka outlined 5 C's of crisis communication. Confess. Don't try to hide what you've done. Don't try to, trying to delete posts and that kind of thing. No, you're not going to fool anybody. Just go ahead and confess. I messed up, I did something wrong, and I want to fix it. Be contrite. If people see that you really are truly sorry and not just sorry you got caught, that'll go a long way toward repairing and rebuilding trust. Counteract the problem. Whatever you have to do to make it better, do it. If it means firing an employee, if it means changing policies, change them and fire them. Correct the error. Make sure you know how to ensure that it won't happen again in the future, and communicate that to the public so that they know that you're serious and that you are taking action so that it doesn't happen again. And if it's appropriate, compensate the offended party. I don't think our restaurant would have gotten very far with offering a free dinner, but sometimes you can offer maybe a donation to a cause that they believe in, or something that is of value to them and that obviously costs you something. Don't give them a 10% coupon and say you've tried to make up for it. That will not fly. Now, I would add 3 additional C's to Monika's. And the first one would be to continue to interact. If our restaurant had stayed on their social media platforms and interacted with the public as the public was finding out about this and getting angry, not to deny, not to defend or minimize at all the enormity of what had happened and the seriousness of it, but just to be there and to listen. People really, really trust you more when they know you are listening. Communicate with integrity. Don't try to lie your way out of it. Don't try to put a spin on it. Don't say you were hacked. Nobody is going to believe that your Twitter or Facebook account was hacked, so don't even try that. And consider the tone of what you're saying or your intended message. Trying to be humorous at a crisis time, is probably unwise. Consider the tone and the seriousness of what's happened. With the racism example in our restaurant, it was pretty serious because the city that we lived in is a racially divided city, and obviously in our country, given the things that have been happening, it's a pretty serious violation of public trust. So be sure that everything that you say matches the seriousness and gravity of the problem that you've created. So thanks for watching, and I hope you feel more prepared for a crisis, and I hope for you that that crisis never comes. Well, I hope you're prepared for a crisis, because it will come. There will be one, whether it will be a small one or a big one, whether you'll have to respond to something like the COVID-19 pandemic or the Black Lives Matter protests, and decide whether or not to take a stand or whether it's appropriate for you to weigh in. you will have to face a crisis at some point. So I hope you have made it a priority now to be prepared and to understand what to do and to establish policies and ways to respond when it does happen. I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter at Beth G. Sanders, on Instagram at Beth G. Sanders Online. And until next week, have a great week and bye now.